What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the Wise Tech NFL DFS Wise Stream. It is week 8, and I'm CK013. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. Joined once again by the two OGs of the Wise Tech Nation. First up, the man that needs no introduction, though maybe he does today. Don't be fooled by the appearance. This is Patio Joe underneath all that mass, all that muscular mass. It is still the one, the true Patio Joe. Joey, what's happening?
Not much. I realize that I'm always in costume as Mr. Incredible, but because it is Halloween, I had to put on the official Mr. Incredible outfit.
Yeah,
for the nation.
We call him Joey Incredible today. That's his. You can find Joey Incredible on Twitter at Patio Joe Ref. Same place you can find Audie Fulton from time to time. And we are joined by the GOAT, the true OG Paulie D. You can find him on Twitter at Paulie with 8 Ds. Paulie was trying to do some upgrades with his equipment. We got a camera, which we tried to make it. He tried to come through for the nation, make it happen, but we're 1 week away. But props to Paulie, man. Went out there, got himself the webcam, got the headphones, everything, man. Unfortunately, technology wins tonight. So technology 1, Wise Tech Nation 0. But just for this week, I'm sure we'll get it figured out by next week. Paulie, what's happening, bro?
What up, though?
Is what it is, man. Late night with the nation. There's no better way to spend a Friday night / Saturday morning, depending on where you live. Guys, we're coming off a really big week. Shout out to MG. Turned $5 into $15,000. Quite the feat. I think he did risk, like $100, but it was the $5 entry that got him to do the dirty all across DraftKings. Shout out to MG. Patio Joe though. Had to suspend you for the first look show though. You had your first loss, bro. We don't tolerate that shit around here. 6-1 Patio Joe. 6-1 Joe.
Yeah, I did wind up cashing though. I finished 10th in a $10 tournament, so it's not like I had a $0 day. So it was okay. It wasn't.
It just wasn't up to what to the standard we hold Joe to.
Darren Fells, man. Darren Fells is an X out. Never again.
Yeah, definitely. Never again in cash. But still looking to build off a good week. Paul, you were all over the quarterbacks last week, man. And I know Thorough Joe was one of your top quarterbacks, by far the best point per dollar quarterback on the slate. We had a lot of different players go off. It was just a crazy high scoring slate now, and this week seems like the polar opposite. Maybe it's because like half the games or more have some kind of severe weather involved. Maybe it's just because of matchup. Maybe it's a combination of everything. But this slate just kind of feels ugly to me. What are your thoughts, Joe?
I feel like this slate is, kind of like we were saying in the pre-show, it's kind of like a basketball slate where I might not know something until the very, last minutes with weather and such. But there is some, tasty matchups I think we can get into. And I think that it will be a lower scoring slate compared to last week. But it still doesn't mean that there's not some really good plays and really good games that we can go at.
For sure. Paulie, what are your thoughts?
I agree it'll be a little lower than last week. Last week was ridiculously high, but a lot of times weather gets overblown, and this is like the most dramatic negative weather we've had since I've played DFS. And I think we're going to get like hyper concentrated ownership because of it, higher than, cumulatively than we've had all season. And that usually creates opportunity. So I'm actually kind of like, this slate's really growing on me in terms of like opportunity to repeat what you and MG did last week.
I like it, man. I like the sound of that, and I'll be listening to you guys thoroughly. I was telling Joe before the show, I'm always anxious to hear what you guys have to say about the slate before I make any of my decisions and write the core plays article and all that. But this week especially, because I think there are a lot of different ways you can go, and because of the wind, at least it seems so far, a lot of the ownership is really piling up on a few players. So definitely curious to hear what you guys like at each position. With that said, shout out to the Wise Tech Nation. Yes, this is the Halloween edition, if you will. Thanks to Patio Joe coming through. I asked him, I said, Joe, you going to a Halloween party? I didn't even think about the COVID nonsense. And then Joey's like, no, I'm doing this for the fucking nation. You know why? Because we do it for the fucking nation. That's why. And that's Patio Joe showing that commitment to y'all. Wearing that.
Well, also, though, Also, though, me and my wife have role play night, so after this is over,
It,
it might be
it had
role play.
Yeah,
more.
yeah. You knew there was a
Yeah.
catch, but either way, we'll take what we can get. Doing it for the nation. Either way. Shout out to the nation. If you haven't hit the like button, please hit the like button. Much appreciated. David Torrey's got one. David Torrey in the chat says Paulie is dressed up as a DFS expert. Scary. You never know. We always in costume, bro. Always in costume all day. But hit the like button, guys. We appreciate you. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. We'll pull up these projections when we start going position by position, which we might as well do now because it's like a lot to discuss, and I want to pick your guys' brains. So we're going to start off with quarterback as we generally do. Those of you who participated in our giveaway, stay tuned to the end of the show. We'll have the spin wheel thing. Find out who the winner of the $25 is. Free $25, and don't forget, I gotta put the links in this show. But in our first look show, we have a listener league we're doing. Just something small, just to kind of review on the shows and have some fun, get a chance to play against myself, Patio Joe Paulie D, and other members of the Wise Take Nation. So the listener links will be posted in the description. Once we get once we get things rolling, I'll post it up in there. With that said, we're gonna start with quarterbacks. Joey, I'm kicking it to you first. Joey covering FanDuel cash games, specialist. Paulie D will be covering DraftKings. Joey, talk dirty to me with spend up quarterbacks.
Spend up quarterbacks in cash is not going to happen today, at least not the way I like it. But if you're going to play, if you're going to spend up in at quarterback, I would do Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers. Wilson's in a good matchup that should be high scoring. The weather is not, it shouldn't be anything to really worry about. And he is, has been Mr. Dependable, scoring, 25 to 30 points a week. So if you wanted to pay up for that, I don't mind it. I prefer more of a GBP setting. And then Aaron Rodgers is the other quarterback. He is in a little bit more of a weather situation, but he is more. I could still see it. If you wanted to go there and throw in a lot, but I think it's going to be more of a running game. And then Patrick Mahomes is probably going to be really low owned. Nobody's really going to play him. They just think he's going to be a blowout, and everybody's going to be on Le'Veon Bell or somebody else like that. So I think he'll be sort of a contrarian play if you wanted to do that. But if you're going to pay up in cash, I think it's either Wilson or Rodgers.
Yeah, I don't disagree, especially with the Russell Wilson situation. I got my eyes on that running back situation, if you will, in Seattle, which I think could make Russ a little bit more enticing. With that said, Paulie, kicking it to you. DraftKings, spend ups. Do you like anyone?
Same guy. Well, Russ is by far my favorite. I would play him in. You can't play him in cash. You need to spend down, but I would play a lot of him in tournaments. And then, I think Mahomes is an interesting pivot at 8,100. Not a ton of weather concerns. 20-point favorites. He should get his. It's just, does he get it all the way up? Or does he just have a nice game and do all right? But if we had the money, if some value opened up, those would be one of the two quarterbacks I'd be looking at for cash. But the way the builds are working this week, it's a spend down week, especially for cash. But on the upside, those two. And for DraftKings, Lamar Jackson's actually my favorite spend up above 7K. 7,400. Going to be wet and rainy. Advantage to the runner. Pittsburgh gets after the quarterback, which is going to force Lamar to kind of run more. I just don't really see anyone else on Baltimore really putting up a big game that Lamar doesn't have a piece of. You know what I mean? So, it's either they get smoked, or if this is a really good game, or if Baltimore wins, I just don't see how it's not Lamar just having a massive game on the ground and through the air as well. If Andrews or Hollywood Brown had a good game, then so did Lamar. But I think he's going to have his best game of the year rushing. I think he has 15 plus attempts because of how much pressure Pittsburgh gets on the quarterback, and I think he has a monster game. And with the finally discounted price on him, really really like that. And then I think Josh Allen's worth playing in some GPPs. That game doesn't have as high a weather concern as some others, and you got two pretty bad defenses here. I think Buffalo would love nothing but to smoke New England, and I think New England actually bounces back and kind of keeps this close, and I think we see like a little bit of a higher scoring game than the people expect. So I would get some Josh Allen as well, but Lamar's my favorite, and Russ Wilson's very close on the high end. And I think if you got the money, then Mahomes is worth getting some exposure to as well. Rodgers is fine, but the stack is really, really expensive. Like I plan to kind of just get my exposure to Rodgers, Devontae Adams.
Yeah, I mean, the Rodgers one is like, I guess, like, it's tough to really make a strong decision. Like, obviously Rodgers himself is great. Adams, sure, and like Paulie said, you can always get your exposure through Devontae. But the win makes it weird, right? You got both starting quarterbacks out for the Vikings, and already a bad secondary and bad defense. Now you fit, but then there's a little bit of an equalizer in this win, and maybe it's not an equalizer at all. Maybe people overreact. But I do think that that's something to consider before making that decision. You really have to weigh those things out. But yeah, I also agree. But both of you are mentioned Russell Wilson. If you are going to spend up, it's going to be tough to spend up unless we get some mega value opening up, which we may. But unless we do, it's going to be tough. But I will say I agree with you guys that Russell Wilson is the one. If you can reach him, not in cash, obviously that's be too difficult. But if you can reach him in a tournament lineup, he's the one I think presents the most upside, especially if Carson, Hyde, and all these running backs are out. I think they'll have to ask Russell a little bit more against San Francisco, who's still missing Richard Sherman. Either of you interested in Tannehill at all? I don't know. His ownership projection is like kind of up there. Joe, you're shaking your head. No.
No, my quarterback pool is really small.
Paulie?
Nope, not at all.
Oh, that's your boy. Mid-tier it up, Joey.
Well, the mid-tier, I mean, to me, it's I guess Justin Herbert is considered mid-tier, but on FanDuel, I'm just gonna complete it because the mid-tier is not really big. It's the value to where you're gonna get two guys that you're probably gonna get most of your cash game ownership. Personally, I'm gonna go with Jimmy Garoppolo at 6,600. He's cheaper on FanDuel compared to on DK. Now on DK, I can see the case for Carr because they're only $100 a piece apart. But on FanDuel, 6,600 compared to 73. If you're gonna pay down, you might as well pay down another extra $700 and be able to get another player that you want. So to me, it's Jimmy G. He's thrown for over 275 yards the past two games. Seattle secondary is probably the worst in football. The running game is banged up. So I mean, that's why we talked about Wilson. Like both these quarterbacks, the running game's banged up, and their defenses on both sides are banged up too. So it seems like the shootout's coming. So to me, it's like pretty simple build. To me, it's Garoppolo at 6,600. Pretty much a lock for me on FanDuel at this point because he's just going to allow you to pay up somewhere else. But Carr is in a good spot also against the Browns. But if we're, like I said, if we're going to start splitting hairs at this point, I'll take the guy in a better situation weather-wise, and I feel like the game could shoot out just as easily as the Browns and the Raiders are. I mean, me and Paulie Paulie loves attacking the Browns. I feel like they just go, they go over all year. So I don't see that. I could see that happening, but to me, it's the wind is going to slow things down. And if you think like when we get to running backs, if we love Kareem Hunt, that means that they're controlling the game and they're running the ball and the clock is going down. And if the wind is that bad, maybe Jacobs is a little bit running the ball a little bit more than he normally would. So to me, I would pick Jimmy G over Carr. But those are my two options. I think if you're playing cash this week, it's going to be one of those two guys.
Paulie?
Completely agree with the use Garoppolo and cash idea. I favor him over Carr. First of all, we don't have the weather concerns. Second of all, Seattle's just been getting murdered, by the opposing quarterback and skill players. Whereas like the Raiders, sometimes they do, but not, as consistent. The Seahawks are playing super fast as well, so you're gonna see San Fran run more plays. It's just to me, it's Garoppolo over Carr for cash. They're both in play. We got to keep our eyes on the weather situation in Cleveland and many other spots. But like for a guy like Derek Carr, the weather really takes me off of him. Like I don't think they have very much short game upside. Like if he's gonna have this smash game, like he's gonna have to throw and complete a ton of like downfield passes to really be worth it. And with the wind that hard and cold, I don't see it happening. Joe Burrow, I definitely like in like that mid tier range. Although we got to keep an eye on the weather there as well. But the likely game flow is Derrick Henry does the dirty on the ground, Burrow playing from behind, throws the shit out of it. Once again, the guy's had 5 out of 7 games, thrown over 300 yards. He's able to run the ball some, and he's got talented players like all over the field. So you just keep going there. Stafford, I'm starting to begin to like. It's the safest game on the slate with the dome, and like I know the Colts have done well defensively, and like I hope that continues to start the game, and the Colts can get a lead, and the Lions kind of switch off this like huge desire to run all the time and just try to win this game and let Stafford throw the ball over 40 times, which he's only done once this year. But it seems like the Colts are always in like close back and forth kind of games, and same thing with the Lions. So I think Stafford could actually be really interesting this week, and very, very low after being kind of popular the last few and not doing much. And then I think I'm going to take some shots on Cam Newton against Buffalo. Buffalo's defense is terrible, and the Patriots are missing a ton of skilled players. Like if they're in this game, which the spread's not that big, it's going to be all on Cam Newton. And I wouldn't be shocked to see them, show up, play with pride, and try to win this game against Buffalo, a team that's trying to kind of like usurp them in the division. And I just don't think either of these defenses are any good at all. And that's a really low price on Cam on DraftKings, especially at 5.7, with the rushing upside and like we've seen what he can do in close back and forth games. And this one, I think has a more than what the field thinks chance of actually being somewhat high scoring and back and forth. So he's kind of interesting as like a super contrarian pivot off of the Carr Garoppolo with really higher ceiling than both those guys.
Have you heard the speculation that the people are saying that they think Cam is suffering from, I forgot what they call it, but I guess there's some COVID patients who like they recover, but then they're like kind of groggy mentally. They have mental lapses, and they're like they're basically blaming Cam's last 2 weeks on this like post-COVID. I don't know. I don't even know. I like funk. I don't know, but I thought that was kind of interesting. Does Julian Edelman being out to get the knee surgery do anything? And Cam, do you think it's better for him in any way? Like just not having to throw it to a hobbled player. Obviously he was bothered with injury for longer than this.
Yeah, he's only really had one decent game, and with him out, it just like forces Cam to do more with his legs, or air it out a little bit more, because other receivers are going to be able to use the field a bit more. So it doesn't really matter to me that Edelman's not there.
Sure enough. One guy I want to ask you both about, because he's projecting to be pretty popular, and I didn't really hear either of you mention him too much. I don't think, unless I just, me, I don't always pay attention. Joe Burrow, thorough Joe Burrow, last week's superstar. He's projecting to be somewhat popular. I think we all understand it, right? The volume's there, the pass attempts, but there are some red flags. Even with Joe Mixon being out, I think he's missing all 3 of his starting linemen, or 3 of his starting linemen, a left tackle, a right tackle, and a center. So there's some question marks. Joey, starting with you. Any interest in thorough Joe Burrow?
Yeah, you nailed it right there. Just go right back to the sentence right before you threw it to me. You said he's losing 3 offensive linemen. Right there. That takes me out of the. I'm done. I don't need no Burrow.
Got it. Paulie.
I did talk about him. He was probably the first one I talked about.
Oh, you did? My bad. My bad.
5 to 7 weeks over 300 yards. Has some rushing ability. Has skilled players all over the field. Tennessee's defense not really that good. Um, I like it. The only knock is the weather.
Well, weather, yeah, and the 3 linemen. Yep.
Yeah, but they weren't good
I
to
was
begin with. I
gonna
don't
say,
know
but
how
then
much.
again, they weren't that good to begin with. So
He's the most hurried rush quarterback all season already. So
yeah,
he's used to it.
he's used to it. Moving over to running backs, take it to the top, Joey.
Well, I think this is where, the running backs this week, that's where you're going to have to, people are going to pay up for them. And it's funny because the lineups that I'm building now, it's kind of interesting because you got Derrick Henry at 9,500, and he's averages 24 rushing attempts on the year. He's had 7 touchdowns in the last 4 games. So he's going to be used. He's just really expensive. And even if you're paying down places, you're going to have to pick and choose who you're paying up for. Because I feel like you could pay up for like one high price guy, and then you kind of got to go with like an 8 and then a 7. And then you got to go with the key this week is going to be finding the value receivers to go with these high priced running backs in cash, because everybody's kind of have a combination of like Henry or Kamara up top with Kareem Hunt. Like 2 of those 3 are probably going to be used. It's whatever you prefer. Right now, I like Henry and Hunt over Kamara. And it's tough. It's just kind of splitting hairs to me. It's like Kamara's, you have no Thomas, no Sanders. I think Callaway's even out now too. But the Bears have probably got the best defense of the 3 of if you're comparing the 3. He's on the road. It's going to be really windy in Chicago. And, I could just see that game being really sloppy and such. And then Derrick Henry is going up against the Bengals, who are not that good against the run. He's going to be getting the ball, and he's going to get the volume. And then you got Kareem Hunt, who's probably just 1 or 1A with Henry to me. He's facing the Raiders, who they're the biggest mismatch um, is the offensive line of the Browns against the defensive line of the Raiders, who's given up like 5 yards a carry. They're number 4 worst against the run DVOA, or number 2 or number 4. I get those all mixed up, but they're bad against the run. And I just feel like even in a bad game script or a bad weather game, they're going to be dropping, dumping passes off to Hunt, and he's going to try to be running the ball. So right now, if I had to like rank those 3, it would be Hunt, like Henry, and then Kamara at 3. And Kamara might not make the lineup because I think you only play 2 of them.
Thug life, Paulie.
Yeah, I mean, with all the weather around, you definitely want to pay attention to running backs and, make decisions accordingly. They're going to be kind of what separates you on this slate if all that weather does have the impact. On the high end, we've got a lot of attractive options: Kamara, Henry, Cook, Hunt. I like all 4 of them. I would say right now, Kamara's my favorite, with Callaway also getting ruled out for the Saints. They just literally have nobody to throw to besides
Traquan
Cook
Smith.
and Traquan Smith, I guess. They're facing a tough defense, and I think we might see Kamara get targeted 20 times with like a 2-yard A dot, and if he catches what the percentage he normally does, that's like 16 catches and a lot of yards. Expect him to score some touchdowns. He hasn't had a touchdown in 2 weeks. And only 1 in 3. Prior to that, he had like 6 in the first 3 weeks or more. So I think the touchdowns come back. I don't think the Bears are really that good against the run. And, Callaway was actually like, used a lot last week. He had like 10 targets. You lose him, they just don't have anything really that I could see them throwing to a ton. I think it's just going to be the Kamara show. And, at that price, He's probably my favorite of these four. I do like Henry a lot. I'm just like, he's one-dimensional. The price is what it should be, and he's really got to score like 2 touchdowns or have like a 200-yard game to be the best out of this group. And I'll have him, but he's probably my least favorite of the group. No, what's his name? The tackle that was out, Taylor Lewan. And although it's a good matchup, I'm concerned a little bit. Dalvin Cook, I do have a lot of interest in. Green Bay is probably the worst team against the run in football. We got weather, which should limit the passing. This guy could get 30 touches as well, and we've seen that they're willing to throw to him if they need to. Whether they're ahead or behind, I just don't see him not getting the volume, and I like the nice discount, at 75. And he seems to be the least popular of this group. And then Kareem Hunt, I do like. Losing Odell takes away, a guy that got a bunch of the market share. It's a good matchup, O-line versus D. There's a chance that they trail and he gets, a boost in the targets with no Odell there. There's a good chance he runs all over them. The Raiders, although they haven't been giving up a ton of yards, they've consistently given up touchdowns to running backs all season and given up most to running back. And at 6'9", he doesn't kill you either. It's like there's like minimal chance that I use Kamara and Henry together very much. But Hunt with Kamara, Hunt with Henry, Cook with Henry, that works a lot more. So Cook and Hunt, neither is like separated from the other yet for me. I like them both kind of equally, but Kamara is my favorite of the four, like 6'9" and 12 on DK.
Yeah, I'll say Kamara definitely seems like a DraftKings centric idea. Like it's easy to talk someone into playing him on DraftKings where you're not betting that he's necessarily going to get in the end zone, or the floor anyway is not betting on him getting in the end zone. You can just rely on PPR and maybe even bonuses if he's able to go for a decent amount of total yards. FanDuel, obviously, where you're being sold on the touchdown, I find it hard to click him over the Dalvin Cooks and the Derrick Henrys because I think they're so much more likely to get in the end zone. But I do like Kamara significantly more on DraftKings than I would on FanDuel. Matchup aside, like you said, Paulie, it's a usage thing, man. It's just going to get so much work. He's not guaranteed to get in the end zone, but he's guaranteed to be the reason they got down there, it seems, at the very least. So I do like that. And I'm with you guys with Kareem Hunt. He seems like one of the best plays on the slate. Like he's one of the few things coming into it, and like you guys were saying, Sunday is really when you're really going to know what you like, I guess, just based off how news goes. But Kareem Hunt definitely stands out, and all the news we've gotten has been in favor of him, right? Like you said, Paulie, it's a really good matchup, offensive line versus defensive line for Kareem Hunt. The Raiders are on the Kareem Hunt is at home. We've got terrible weather that's going to encourage the run. The Browns are already a team that likes to run, so I'm with you guys on Kareem Hunt for sure. Talk to me about the mid-tier, Joey.
Yeah, the mid tiers, you have a couple nice options at running back. To me, I think the guy that stands out the most, in fantasy football, especially in DFS, what do we want the most? We want volume. And what do we have in volume? We have Jamal Williams at 7,000. He's the starting running back this week for Green Bay, going up against Minnesota. He had over 20. He had 24 touches last week. He's probably going to get that this week. A.J. Dillon was not a factor at all. Jamal Williams had about almost 90% of the snap share last week. And so to me, it's going up against the Vikings, who are not very good. And I just feel like, to me, Williams is even a better play for cash than Devontae Adams. So to me, Jamal Williams is almost a lockdown floor play for me at 7,000 on FanDuel. On DraftKings, he's a little bit more like, I think you have to decide a little bit more on it. But on FanDuel, it's Jamal Williams. The guy a little bit right above him, Jonathan Taylor, coming off of a bye. Detroit can be run on, and people are saying that he's getting a lot of buzz that this is going to be his breakout game. I don't know. Like, I feel like this might just be the type of runner that he is. He might be, 2x. We might not see that 3 or 4x game that often, but we'll see this week. He's got a good matchup. He's in the dome. There's no weather concerns, no nothing like that. So I like Taylor too. You could throw, guard throws or something on CEH if you think that the game's going to be closer than it is. But probably the GBP plays. Melvin Gordon isn't bad at 6,700 in a revenge game against the Chargers. But Philip Lindsay coming back probably could muddle that. And then Le'Veon Bell at 6K, probably going to be like the pretty obvious touchdown call. So if you're chasing touchdowns, I think Bell is good for a touchdown. But I wouldn't play him in cash, strictly GPP only. That's where I'll stop.
I hear. Paulie D.
There's not a ton that I'm in love with for value outside of Jamal Williams. Just with the weather. We saw him get like almost 25 touches last week, and until he got that touchdown, it wasn't really there. But they were airing the ball out. With the weather, they may not be able to do that. Um, this seems like a really good Jamal Williams spot against Minnesota, and uh, even though the price is up a little bit, I just he feels at his price just like one of the better point per dollar plays on the slate against a team that's not very good defensively, does not do well against running backs catching the ball. And we've got weather forcing checkdowns, which, I think of like, if you compare some of the other teams in these situations, I think Cleveland's more likely to hand the ball off a million times. But Green Bay, they may, throw like 15 screens to Jamal Williams more so than like Kareem Hunt or some of these other guys might get. So I think he's got a much higher ceiling than normal because of the weather and just a really good spot and good volume. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is kind of interesting to me. It's obviously a great spot and everywhere on this offense for the Chiefs. Everyone's kind of like expecting Le'Veon Bell to have a decent game, and I think he will, but I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire at like 3%, still going to get more carries, still probably the faster and more talented running back at this point, more familiar with the offense, and it's just like a good spot for guys going to have no ownership, and we've seen him have 2 ceiling games, one only 2 weeks ago against Buffalo. With everyone going to play Lev Bell, I think that's kind of interesting, like leverage play. Jonathan Taylor's in a good spot against Detroit. We've seen other rookies at other positions take a few weeks to, finally have their breakout. And this guy's been given decent opportunity, but, only 1 week did he really get massive workload. And that was week 2 against Minnesota. And he did well there. Against Detroit, it's possible they jump out ahead and he gets fed. It's possible they fall behind, gets involved in the pass game. Like, it's a good spot. Detroit's really bad against the run, and maybe after coming off a bye, they script more for him, and he has that ceiling volume and scoring kind of game, and definitely worth some exposure on a slate where you don't have like a ton that's that attractive. Going down the list, Darrell Henderson's in a really good spot against Miami. It's just annoying that they've got 3 guys that could get carries, and they're more of a pass first team. But O-line versus D-line, it makes sense. The weather's not going to be really great down here either, and they should be playing from ahead. Darrell Henderson should get close to 20 touches against a bad defense in a game they should control. Gio, it's interesting how, like, last week, him and Williams kind of split the slate. This week, it feels like everyone's running to Williams and everyone's like forgetting again about Gio. And with the lineman hurt and with the weather, there's the opportunity for him to get significantly more targets, a lot more of that short pass game. And he's cheaper and he's going to be lower owned. So don't forget about Gio. I'm going to be playing at least 15 or 20% of him. Melvin Gordon. if what's his name? Philip Lindsay gets ruled out, Melvin Gordon will be like one of my top 3 most owned running backs. The price, the matchup in the last 4 weeks, the Chargers are like 5th worst against the run. They've gotten beaten up by a couple guys recently, and they just lost Patrick. So there's less options in the pass game. He's had really nice, volume passing or carries wise all season long. And I think this is a really good spot. And it's a revenge narrative, and he's cheap, and he's going to be low. And even if Philip Lindsay does play, I'm going to get like at least 10% of him. But if Lindsay's out, he'll be one of my top 3 running backs. Going further down, I will get a little bit of Lev Bell in case they just like let him crush the Jets, and there's not much the Jets will be able to do to stop that. Latavius Murray, with the weather, they probably, it might be viable to play Latavius and Kamara in the same lineup, although I'm not recommending that. I'm just saying it's possible. I think James White at 4-5 against New England with Edelman out, he may see a spike in targets as like the short passing game guy. LaMichael Pirine, blowout build. The Chiefs have 40 at halftime, and they throw in the second string, and whatchamacallit, and Pirine just kind of gets there, almost like last week when he got that touchdown. And then Tevin Coleman, I got my eye on. He's 4K. They did take him off the IR list. It's just he hasn't, practiced since week 2. I don't know how much workload they'd give him. But we've seen them do that. Like Mostert came back, they gave him a big workload, and he was clearly like 1A to Mostert last year. First game back against Seattle, they're missing some of the weapons in the pass game. At 4K, he doesn't have to do a ton, and we do expect a lot of points scored here. So if I hear a high stat, higher than like minimum snap count for him or expected touches, then that could grow on me as well. And then lastly, I think Rex Burkhead as well with Edelman at like 4K. I really think New England does move the ball and score some points here, and like the only guys I could see it really happening through are like Burkhead, what's his name, White, or like Damier Bird. So we've seen him do it a few times this year when other guys were out. So Rex Burkhead is also interesting to me.
Yeah, I think, considering how concentrated the ownership's going to be on guys at the top, like Hunt, Henry, Kamara, etc., I do think it's worth just kind of looking at least. And I think there are a lot of guys to consider. You guys mentioned Jonathan Taylor. Detroit currently 3rd in DVP, meaning they've allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to running backs. And like you said, it's a clear mismatch, offensive line versus defensive line, similar to Kareem Hunt. Obviously, a little more of a platoon situation that makes everybody nervous. But I do like the idea of Taylor at lower ownership. Jamal Williams, you mentioned, Gio Bernard. These are guys we have to consider in these situations. Gio, I'm a little bit more concerned than Burrow as far as the offensive line injuries. But similarly to Kamara, I mean, I'm not comparing him to Kamara, but he's basically the only back. So we're expecting him to be involved in the pass game, not quite as heavily as Kamara, to be clear. We are expecting him to be involved. So there is opportunity there. One other guy I'll mention, just like as a more of a, again, just like an MME, like low-owned play. But one guy that I would like to have exposure to is James Conner. And I think he would make sense with the Lamar Jackson that you were talking about before as a potential bring back or a correlation piece from the Steelers side. The Ravens have been very good against the run, but you can pass to the running backs against them. And Connor's another one that's just soaking up so much of that usage and is a true primary RB1 bell cow running back. So the simple fact that he's low owned and a reasonable price in a game that should be competitive is just worth monitoring. But again, I like the fact that you guys kind of highlighted a lot of these other running backs and pointed out that it's not just the guys at the top. There are guys to consider all throughout. Joey will be back. His computer froze. So while he tends to that, Paulie, I'm going to kick it over to you to start us off at receivers spend-ups. If Joey is back, then great. If not, we'll just have it keep rolling. So talk to me about some wide receiver spend-ups.
So, Devontae Adams is $1,300 more than the next guy on DraftKings. and coming off an absolute smash against a team that he smashed earlier with two of their starting cornerbacks out, and the Packers starting running back ruled out once again. It seems like a phenomenal spot, but I don't really love it. Like, the weathers should reduce his ceiling quite a bit. Like, you know, everything went right for him last week as it did week 1 against Minnesota, but I don't know. Like, he's really expensive. He's really got to go get you like 30 plus. And like, he's capable of doing it. If there was no weather, I wouldn't even have much hesitation because I think, like last year with Mike Thomas, they kept raising his price, but he just kept consistently being, getting you a 30 plus. And even though it wasn't like the best point per dollar play, it was a high floor, and he was in winning lineups all the time. But the weather is really kind of like, annoying me at this one. It's like, the pass game really is limited. These teams, like especially Minnesota, they could take out a lot of clock on the ground, and you take away like one or two long plays and a touchdown, and it's you're back down around 30. I don't know. He should get a ton of targets. He should get a lot of opportunity, but it's really expensive, and there are a lot of other options on the slate that could certainly match him point per dollar and even possibly ceiling. And I just think he's going to be like really popular at a high price where like you really got to smash to be worth it. And I don't know. I'm losing interest as we get closer to slate, mostly because of weather, but also just the build you get when you force him in versus if you don't try to jam him in. So we'll see. We'll see what other value opens up. Like, I'm not gonna fade him completely, but I'm probably gonna be under the field, and I doubt that changes unless the weather changes dramatically. After that, I love DK Metcalf. Um, he'll probably be my highest owned expensive receiver. Tyler Lockett. If I'm ever going heavy on one, then I'm gonna have moderate exposure to the other because you just really like you don't know which one it's gonna be. It's rarely gonna be both where the winning stack has both of them, although it's happened once or twice this year. But I like one of them with Russ. It's hard to get both because of how much money you gotta spend. I'll go down to like 65. In this like upper 6K range, I like a bunch of stuff. I like Stephon Diggs quite a bit. Um, I don't think we know John Brown's status yet, but even if he does play, I don't expect him to have like a huge role coming back from injury.
He's expected to be
Um,
back. I believe he practiced in full this week.
yeah, Stephon Diggs just dominating the touches. We don't know if Gilmore's going to be there, but that could impact that decision as well. Really like Tyreek Hill. The Jets are just not going to stop anybody, and Tyreek Hill's blow up game is coming, and with like a little bit of weather in this situation, maybe they check down to him a bunch, and he does a lot of yards after the catch kind of stuff. Really like Kenny Galladay. I know the Colts are good defensively, but I don't think it matters. I think he's matchup proof. I think they fall behind. I think this game's high scoring, and I think he's one of the best receivers in the game, besides like DK Metcalf. Justin Jefferson's fine. If if you think that Jair Alexander goes to Thielen, then Jefferson should soak up a lot of targets. Just again, we got the weather concerns there, and I do really like Cooper Kupp against Miami. I think he's got some progression coming, especially in the touchdown department after being one of the leaders in touchdowns last year and really not getting that so far. I think we see a big second half out of Kupp this season. So like him as well, and one of the games less they're impacted by weather.
Sure enough, Patio Joe is back. Joey, talk to us from a FanDuel perspective about the wide receivers. Take us down. We'll include the mid tier and the top tier together.
Yeah, I think that Devontae Adams is like I kind of echo Paulie's sentiment that like I feel like sort of we're chasing points in so many ways. Like I don't think you can expect that this week, especially because of weather. So I think that you could pay up for, one 9K player. So to me, it's like, who do you prefer, Adams, Henry, or Kamara? So in cash, I think I'm gonna pick the guy I know it's gonna get it about 25 times. So I'm not saying you can't. I also feel like if you're playing cash this week, this is really the week like not to stack if you are a stacker in cash. And the reason why I say that is just because with all the questions and weather and such, that if a bad weather game hits something and you have the receiver and the running back, and let's say it's just a bad game all in general, that game is washed and your team's done. So I diversify as much as you can because you never know when the weather could really hurt that game, I think. So I like Adams, but I'm not really under it. I actually think that, DK might outscore him this week. He is facing Emmanuel Mosley, who he couldn't even cover Josh Reynolds a couple weeks ago. So I don't see how he's going to cover a DK who lines up on the left side. He gets 23% of his targets. That's where they give up all their bombs. So to me, I think DK Metcalf is a great play. Again, I'm like the king of the DK Metcalf fan club. So I don't mind AJ Brown either. He's been the number one receiver last 3 weeks in PPR, FYI. So he's a good play. Also, Keenan Allen, I think, is criminally underpriced on DK. He's 6,200, is like the 15th highest priced receiver. FanDuel, it's a little bit more, question and such. And Justin Jefferson at 6,600. I'm hearing that it's going to be Jair Alexander on Adam Thielen, and they're going to let Jefferson maybe beat them. I could see that too. I feel like they're going to be in a negative game script anyway, so Jefferson is a decent play at 600. But to me, I feel like the safest play in the mid range, probably Tyler Boyd at 6,400, facing a team in the in the Titans where they're just not very good in the secondary. They have he's going to be against a rookie cornerback, a 7th round pick, Chris Jackson. So I feel like he's ranked right now. Pro Football Focus ranks him number 178 out of 179 corners this year. So I feel like if you want to go for upside and such, because Jefferson and Boyd are kind of like the same price, Jefferson's got probably like a higher ceiling, but Boyd is not going to has a better floor, and that's what you need in cash. I don't think you can't afford like a 0 at receiver this week, and so to me, I like Boyd as the mid-tier range. Now, I definitely sentiment Cooper Kupp. I think he is an amazing GPP play this week, and nobody's going to play him. And then the other GPP play, we'll get to it in the value, but I'm going to talk about him anyways. Marquise Brown, he is going to blow up this week. You can beat the Steelers on the outside. They always they stop the run. They try and stop the short passes. I really feel like you can beat the Steelers on the outside. We saw what AJ Brown did last week to the Steelers secondary. I think Up and Marquise Brown are the two best GPP plays for receiver play. That's where I'll stop.
I can dig it. Paulie D, take us down to Value Town. Oop, mute action.
Did I lose him again?
No, it's probably just mute action.
Oh, my bad.
Goody,
Yeah.
Goody two shoes.
I didn't want background, but I'll give you the mid-tier and Value Town. Keenan Allen, gotta love it. 6,200. We see how much his quarterback likes throwing him. Denver's been very vulnerable against the pass. They've actually been good against the run. Another pass funnel defense, and this looks like a phenomenal spot too low of a price for Keenan Allen, who, if you're doing projections right now on this slate, I don't see how he's not the second highest projected targeted guy. Then I like Brandon Ayuk with the Deebo Samuel out. Seattle's giving up the most fantasy points to receivers. He's really showing that he can do some things with the ball. They're probably going to give him some carries, and he's probably just going to play that Deebo role. Give me some. I like all the Cincinnati receivers, but I think AJ Green's my favorite because of price, and he still seems to be the guy they want to target the most, and he's got to be due some touchdown progression in a high total game. But they're all in play. I'm fine with Boyd. I'm fine with Higgins. The only part that's tough is choosing which one. Who else? Marquise Brown, completely agree, Joey. You know, Pittsburgh, great defense, but they're like bottom 5 against receivers. You beat them on the outside, and Marquise Brown should, get a ton of targets, especially if they fall behind. You can give me some Bears receivers. This is ugly, but Anthony Miller or what's his name, Mooney. With no Robinson, the Saints are a significant pass funnel D, and they should be trailing, so we should see these guys get enough volume and yardage and touchdown upside that one of them is probably worth it on this slate. For the Patriots, I think you got to look at either Damier Byrd or Jacoby Myers with Edelman out. Myers got 6 targets last week after they took Cam out, but I think with Edelman out, he's going to see that same type of snaps. We've seen him dominate in the preseason, and he's probably the most talented receiver for this team on the field now. And then Damier Bird's kind of like the check down guy, and we've seen slots just torch Buffalo all year. And with no Edelman, he should see an increase. I like Denzel Mims for the Jets at 3,200. Trailing the whole way. We saw them script plays for him. He had like 4 or 5 targets in the first half, and then he kind of didn't have anything in the second. Another week of practice, I think that should kind of all that volume should increase, and we'll see maybe a full game of targets in action. And then I don't mind the Chiefs value guys either. Demarcus Robinson and what's the burner's name? Mecole Hardman. It's just everyone on the Chiefs is in play, and the cheap guys are just easier to play because all it takes is one play. Traquan Smith at 4.7, another guy that the Saints can throw a lot of short stuff to, and he can run after the catch, and there's just nobody else there that anyone's ever heard of. So he, even with some weather affecting it, he should get 6 to 10 targets with upside, and if they do have a throwing touchdown, it's either him or Cook or Mara. And that's probably it. I'm not too into a ton. Like, I was really interested in Landry. I thought there was some opportunity in the Pittsburgh receivers. I like the Raiders receivers, but the weather is really kind of like, it's hard to play a marginal player with weather affecting their upside.
Yeah, I agree. Patio Joe once again for some froze action, so we'll be waiting for him. Finally got the headphones, and now I think he used the wireless headphones. I think the headphones are just jacking them up. But it's what it is. Thug life. That's how we roll. I agree. I think there is, and that's the thing about the slate, is that the weather takes you off of the elite looking plays. Like Adams would be considered an elite play. And I do still like Devontae Adams, but obviously the risk is heavily increased. Like, you like Adams because you felt like there was really no risk. He's going to get you at least 20 DraftKings points with a potential for 50. And now that risk you feel like that floor you feel like is a little bit lower. So, I mean, you get a little bit nervous when you're paying such a high premium on a player like that. With that said, if you really wanted to make it work, you can, because there are the Denzel Mims out there, who I agree with Paulie, I think will actually be somewhat popular this week for the people that do want to play Adams and Kamara and all those guys together. No Perriman, no Crowder. we saw with P. Ryan the same way they wanted to go young. They know what it is, right? Nobody has to tell the Jets what time it is. They know what fucking time it is, and they're starting to see these draft picks, and they want to see what they have coming into this draft. So there is stuff to make it work, but there's also a decent amount of mid-tier plays. We have Jarvis Landry, who we expect to be like a number one receiver. We have Rashad Higgins, who we expect to take Odell Beckham's role. However, like you mentioned, we have a win variable. So there's a lot of things to consider. It is like, what's the difference in weather come Sunday between the Packers game and the Browns game? And if so, is that risk more quantifiable for a player like Devontae Adams, who is just a straight volume play? Or is it more quantifiable for players that are cheaper, like your Higgins, like your Landry, because you don't need as much for them to give you that return? All it really takes is one big play to make it happen. So I think those builds are kind of what's going to determine who everybody ends up playing, and it makes for a really interesting slate for sure. With that said, let's move it over to, oh, by the way, in agreement with you and Patio Joe, I love Metcalf as well this week. Super big bounce back spot. Not afraid of the situation. And you and I were talking about this all week with Tyler Lockett, who I owe some gratitude to. But they were clearly attacking Kirkpatrick. Like, say what you will about Peterson. Peterson did fine. He's good. Whatever you want to say. All that matters is, does the coach respect him? Obviously, Carroll does. But regardless, say what you want. It wasn't just about throw it to anybody but Patterson. They were blatantly going after Kirkpatrick, who they seem to have known was injured and was playing terrible. So I do like the Lockett train. Love it. With that said, we will move things right along to the tight end position. Paulie D, tell us what to do.
You play Kittle, with Debo out, there's good chance they're trailing. Kittle could get massive volume this week, and really good. He is, becoming more and more popular on this slate, though. So, that's a little bit annoying. Kind of makes Kelsey a little bit interesting, I would say, because he's probably going to have like under 5% ownership, and Kittle seems to be like on his way to 20 plus. And they're both in phenomenal matchups. You know what I mean? Like, there's no saying that Kelsey doesn't catch 3 touchdowns and 100 yards and have a smash game. And, like, I do think Kittle's the better play, but when you factor ownership, they're really about equal, and I'll probably have similar exposure to both. Darren Waller, seems to make a lot of sense. You got the weather kind of affecting the deep pass game, but Waller really shouldn't be impacted all that much. We've seen him get targeted over 15 times in other games before, and he's good with the ball after the catch. So, at 5'6", he's definitely in play. I really like Mike Gesicki. I think that that's like the one vulnerability in the Rams secondary. I think Devontae Parker is dealing with injuries and may not be 100%. And we know that young quarterbacks like to, rely on the tight end, and like, if not the tight end, the slot. Mike Gesicki plays over 40% of the routes in the slot. He's in a pretty decent spot this weekend, and I don't think he's getting any ownership anywhere. I really like him. Also like Noah Fant. With Patrick likely going to miss, it's one other passing option that they were throwing the ball to a bunch. And second week back from injury, Fant, we've seen him have big ceiling games. Chargers not very good defending the tight end or, the pass game. He's kind of interesting too at 4.7, and I'll cut it there. For upfront here, I don't think you need 3 tiers. That's the up tier.
Yeah, I agree. I've been considering the Kelsey Kittle situation myself in terms of spend ups. I mean, Waller is like point per dollar. He stands out, and he's got the matchup. Seattle, number one, Jamal Adams is questionable to return. If that's the case, it's definitely a downgrade for the matchup for a guy like Kittle. Number two, even without Adams, Seattle has been really tough on tight ends in general. So I still like Kittle because the matchup, but you looking at Kittle more of a game stack piece. I'm like if you're going to invest that much money in a tight end, especially when you have Darren Waller, who's in a much more friendly matchup against a Cleveland team that has always struggled against middle of the field regardless. And he is just as much of a asset to his team as Kittle is to the Niners in terms of targets and like not having a ton of guys around them. And then the other aspect, if you are going to spend up, is Kelsey, right? The Jets have no answer for Kelsey. They have nothing. Kelsey's coming off of a bad game. It's rare that Kelsey has back-to-back bad games. And when I say bad game, maybe like a 16-17 is not good enough. But I would consider that a pretty decent game for a tight end. And I think he's coming off a game against Denver where he put up a 5. So even just off law of averages, have you think of some type of way. But I'm with you. I think those 3 guys, if you're spending up, are definitely guys to hone in on. Kittle being the optimal, if you will. Waller being the point per dollar, like the smart move, I think. And then Kelsey just the pivot. Just game theory it up. Let's get different. Yeah, get different. Patio Joe is back in time to join us with some tight end action. Dodger Joe. We got Dodger Joe.
Yeah, that's right. You have Dodger Joe. I got like Cody Bellinger Joe. What's up, dog? Anyways, for tight end, it's pay up week. I think when you have the top 4 tight ends in the league, you need to pay up for one of them. To me, I'm partial to Darren Waller just because he's in a good matchup. There's not too much there in Las Vegas playing Cleveland. You don't really Ruggs, Renfro, Edwards might be back to kind of muddle things up with Aguilar. There's going to be tough throwing downfield. So to me, it's Waller. He's a little bit priced, just a little bit lower than the other 3 guys. That's why another reason why I like him, and he's just as good as all those other guys. But Kittle would be my number 2. The matchup isn't very good, but Kittle is, pretty, matchup proof at some points. They're gonna force him the ball. I just feel like if you're going to, play Jimmy G, you can get a part of Kittle through that way and still get Waller at a little bit cheaper price to work in another running back or receiver or something like that.
Sure enough. Paulie, rest of tight end.
Yep. There's a couple guys down here I got my eye on. So Jared Cook, weather, no receivers to be found. Scored a touchdown last week. Has had a touchdown in 2 consecutive games in 3 of his last 4. Nobody else in town. Weather, all that good shit. Like him. Trey Burton, we saw him run for a touchdown 2 weeks ago. The Frank Reich offenses love to highlight the tight ends in the red zone and just overall in the passing game. It's on turf. I think you can, certainly get a big game out of Burton once more. Robert Tonyan on Green Bay. We saw him have a spike game a few weeks ago. With the weather, he could see a major spike in the pass game. Like, of all these teams that are affected by weather, I feel like the Packers are the least likely to totally, run away from the pass. And, Aaron Rodgers has a strong enough arm to throw through some of that wind. So Tanyan, who he does seem to like in the pass game, could be an interesting, really contrarian play. Jonnu Smith is in a phenomenal matchup. The Bengals are terrible against the tight end, and you've got weather, which may take away some of the deep pass game, but Jonnu will still be an option. And then there's 2 cheap guys I really, really like on this slate. One is Gerald Everett, as long as Higbee's still out. Guy's talented. Miami's terrible. He can run after the catch. And, as long as Higbee's not there, he should have good market share. And then Cole Kmet. Allen Robinson's ruled out. They only targeted him twice last week, but twice the week before that, he got a touchdown. Very nice air yards. They drafted this guy to be their, offensive weapon, similar to like a Kittle or Kelsey. Big. He's got good air yards in the games that he has finally gotten some snaps. And I think this is the week where, he breaks out. New Orleans has been terrible against the tight end. And with A-Rob out, and bad weather, this could be the spot where he breaks out and he's 2,500.
Joey?
Yeah, the tight ends, down below, I'm not really interested in at all. I'm paying up a tight end. I don't really feel like you need to pay down anywhere. Like I echo Paulie's, sentiments on a lot of the players, but I'm really not into paying down at tight end this week. Trey Burton, maybe. I don't mind him. He was really popular going into the break, and I think people might forget about him.
I'm with it. Definitely a few different ways to go. Jimmy Graham, revenge. Nolans, not just revenge, but New Orleans actually like what third or something like that in DVP against tight end. But in all seriousness, there are a pretty good amount of tight ends to consider, especially when you start incorporating them into your stacks, a la Mark Andrews, a la George Kittle, a la Darren Waller. Want to be a baller. Shout out to what's this? Josh Jennings, man. We just got one of those super chat things, man. We don't get that very often. Josh Jennings says, "Great show as always, fellas. Much appreciated." With the $5, appreciate you, Josh. Appreciate your support. How's Cash and DFS doing? He's doing good, man. I mean, last time we've spoken to him, he's doing pretty well. He's still Cash, man. That's one thing you can always count on with Cash is you can ask 10 years from now how Cash is doing, and I'm going to tell you he's still Cash. By the way, he does have his own YouTube channel. Go check him out. It's not really DFS related except for NASCAR, but he does have. If you want to see what he's up to, man, he's doing all kinds of shit. Being him, so holla at him. I think it's F the Chalk, right? Something like that. Free plug for Cash because we love him. With that said, that's gonna do it for the position by position breakdown. Nation, please hit the like button. We're gonna do the giveaway in just a second. The giveaway drawing, that is. Before we do the giveaway drawing. Or the spin wheel, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I'm going to ask you guys to tell me what your favorite game is. I know it's early. We still got a couple days, and we just talked about how this slate, more than any, is one where we really need to wait till Sunday to make our final decisions, which we will for those subscribed to ysick.com. Paulie D writes a GPP breakdown. Patio Joe writes the cash game breakdown. I do a core plays article where we kind of give our final takes. So please check us out at ysick.com for more. With that said, Joe, I'm going to start with you, bro. What's the game stack standing out to you?
Before we do it, can we pick out some defenses first? Or
oh shit! I'm sorry. Yeah, bro. Yeah. I mean, me. Who gives a fuck about defense? But
yeah,
let's do it.
To me, honestly, like on FanDuel, like it's pretty simple this week. Like I like the higher price defenses. They're nice. I just don't feel like there's enough money to spend up for them. You got the Chiefs in a great spot against the Jets, and then you got the Rams playing against a rookie quarterback and Tua. I don't mind that. But the defense, I think that just sticks out like a sore thumb to me. Oh, I also don't mind the Chargers at 4,300. I feel like Locke can, give up the ball a lot and, have some mistakes and stuff like that. So I don't mind that. But to me, the defense to play in cash on FanDuel is the Saints at 3,600. They are differently priced on DraftKings, so that it's a price discrepancy. So the Saints defense, they're not giving them much respect on FanDuel. They're playing the Bears without A-Rob in a win game. And we know that David Montgomery doesn't have it in him to even take over a game. So I really don't see them scoring many points. Couple that with Foles having throwing an interception in every game that he's played this year, going to get a couple sacks. You just don't want your defense to get you 0. So to me, it's the Saints. Lock them in as your defense in cash. On DK, it's a little bit tougher. I'll let Paulie talk about that.
Paulie, as they say, who got that good D?
That's right. I agree. Like, if you spend up, I love the Rams. That's just a really tough spot for Tua. Chiefs, obviously, against the Jets. They pretty much stream any team against the Jets right now. It's been working out well. But we kind of need money. So, I agree with what Joe said about the Saints. They also have the most dangerous punt returner in the game, which, adds another wrinkle to that. I think the Bills are kind of interesting at 33. Maybe we see a collapse from New England and, the Bills at home, kind of assert their dominance. And this was a very good defense last year. They just, have dealt with some injuries the last few weeks. But there's a chance we see a meltdown in New England, similar to Dallas. I think the Colts at 31, it's a decent price. I don't really love it, but they do make plays. They do get to the quarterback. The Titans, they're cheap. Bengals are missing 3 offensive linemen. Joe Burrow's one of the most sacked quarterbacks this year. He's still a rookie that can throw picks. And I think the Packers are also in play at 2,900 against Minnesota. They got a stud corner, stud D lineman. And if they do jump out to lead and Minnesota's forced to abandon the run and pass, they're one of the best pass defenses in the game. But, another week where I'm probably just going to get like 6 to 8 or 9% of like 10 defenses because none of them outside of the spend ups that stand out. And I ain't going to have the money for the spend ups.
Hey, tell them how it really is. Real quick, we're gonna do a quick question from Wig. What are your thoughts on Harrison Bryant?
Good question, actually. I'll go first. Like, I do prefer him over what's his name, Njoku, but like he caught both of his targets for touchdowns. That's like hyper efficient, and I don't know if that's as likely. We don't know how much extra volume he's going to get. Whether they could just run the ball a ton. He's fine, but I would rather play Burton at similar prices on DraftKings or go further down to like Met. And he's just too popular for a low floor, low ceiling kind of guy.
Yeah, I think you're chasing if you play him this week. I just don't think that the game flow is going to go that way where he's going to be that productive.
Yep.
Fair enough. Myron Kidd has a question: Higgins or Peoples-Jones?
Rashard Higgins or T. Higgins?
I think Rashard. I don't know. That's a good question, Myron. You're gonna have to clarify, man.
I'd probably Rashard Higgins.
For sure.
Same thing. I would probably go with Peoples-Jones.
But Jones.
I would probably go Higgins because he's going to get the snaps. Like, I think Peoples-Jones potentially may be the fourth option in the pass game if what's that dude's name? There's a guy who wasn't really there last week.
Landry.
No, not Landry. Not Landry, not Higgins, not Peoples-Jones. There's a third receiver in the mix there that guy was actually ahead until he got injured, but he's supposed to be back.
All day. Game time, as in time to pick your games. Patio Joe.
Yeah, San Francisco, Seattle is the game I'm gonna highlight. We got you have either couple options. You could either pay down again with Jimmy G or pay up with Russell Wilson. So you have two different. I would probably maybe pay up with Wilson, have a little bit different build and such. But if not, have another team with Jimmy G, pair him with Ayuk or Metcalf with Kittle too. You could play both. I think you could play both Metcalf and Lockett this week with Ayuk or Kelsey, and then just filling around it with other plays and such. That would be the game that I would stack.
Boom. Paulie.
Hard not to say Seattle, San Fran, for game stacks. But I'll go with Baltimore, Pittsburgh. I think Lamar plus Brown, bring it back with one of the Pittsburgh skill players. I kind of lean towards Juju, but there's other options as well. Is my favorite, like, contrarian one.
Boom.
I got another game too. I think we brought it up in the pre-show. I think it's going to be a very low-owned game. Is Indy Detroit? It's the only game that's in a dome, so we don't have to worry about any weather and such. Me, I'd be like Stafford with Golladay. Bring it back with Taylor. If you wanted to have maybe like another option in this, Pete Hawkinson wouldn't be fine, or maybe Trey Burton with Taylor, and Stafford with Golladay. I don't mind that game at all.
Sure enough, sure enough. A couple questions here we'll answer from the chat because we got some time. Diaz asked about favorite GPP stack. I think we covered that with the games. Myron Kidd, Damian Ratley, Paulie?
No, Damon Ratley's on the Giants. The guy's name is Kadero Hodge. He's been on like IR for a few weeks, but he's returning this week.
Hodge. Yep, that's the one. That's the one. What else we got here? Oh yeah. Okay, we was talking about Hodge. One other thing we're gonna do before we do this raffle. Why don't we pick, or I'm gonna have you guys pick anyway. Your favorite bet of the week.
Okay.
Let me your boy. Paul, you want to go first?
Paul, you go first. I got you. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I like the Chiefs and the Patriots over.
Ooh, oh, that's your boy. Bold, taking a 19.5 point favorite, or is it 20? It was 20. No, it's 19.5, 20. I think, or vice versa. Joe, are you ready?
No, you go first.
Ooh, gonna pin it to the host. Suck it to me. Okay, I think I'm gonna go with the Cleveland Browns at 2.5, and that's primarily because I think they have a distinct advantage, considering they have a really good offensive line and should be able to run the ball, control the clock, control the tempo. I think that they're a run-heavy team as is, so I think that as long as they're successfully able to run, they should not have a problem maintaining a lead, or at least maintaining within that distance. Whereas I think the win may the Browns more of a pass funnel defense. I think they may be a little more reliant on the pass, which the win can get involved. So I'll say the Browns minus 2.5. Holla at your boy.
I'm gonna go with the Bills taking the points -4. That's what I like over New England. I feel like last week's game, the Bills were kind of looking ahead past the Jets, having New England at home. They think it's their division.
They can keep looking. They got the Patriots on deck. They can keep looking, bro. What's down the road?
Yeah, I think they'll be fine. Another bet I like also Monday night. I wouldn't mind laying the 10.5 points, Tampa Bay over the Giants.
It's actually like 13 now, I think.
Some places, yeah, it is.
That's dirty. All right, Nation, it is giveaway time. We've got our little wheel on the screen. Hopefully you followed along. We've been doing this, announcing the giveaways on the First Look show, which a lot of times are on the Twitter because we're trying to get the Twitter game up with the retweets and the likes and all that good stuff. So make sure you're following the Nation on Twitter at @wise_take. These are the people that did like and retweet and follow the Wise Take Nation on Twitter. The specific tweet we were looking for, which we pinned to the profile after the First Look show. So again, Tuesday night First Look show. You go down there, you see what the giveaway is, see what the rules is, and then of course we do the drawing here on the Wise Stream Friday. So these people, one of these persons will win $25 just for participating and pushing the Wise Take Nation, helping us out, which is really what it's all about, man. The bigger we get as a team, as a company, as a community, the more we can improve our products, the more we can put into the shows and all that good shit for you guys. So it's a team effort, if you will, a community effort. The effort of a nation, I think, is what it takes. Good thing for us. We are the Wise Take Nation. So with that said, it is time to find out who is this week's winner. The wheel is spinning. I have no control over when it stops. It's just going to do its thing. You know, you get what you pay for, which is nothing. This tool is completely free. And what do you know? It looks like King B, formerly a member of the Wise Take Nation, right. King Burdine. I don't know if I'm saying that wrong. I apologize. That's probably why you left to begin with. But in all seriousness, long-time listener, long-time member of the Wise Take Nation. Shout out to you, man. Free $25 to King B. Gentlemen, congratulations. Congratulate the guy. $25.
Hey,
there it is. There it is. Yes. There it is. That's where it's at. That's just for you, King B. So DM us on Twitter at @wise_take, and we will make the arrangements to hook you up with $25. The quicker you do it, the quicker you get the money. So hop on us. You got this money for some football action, man. That's $1 million. Make a ticket on DraftKings, bro. We're $5 to get some chips after. Take advantage of that. That is going to do it, ladies and gentlemen, for today's show. Appreciate y'all rocking with the nation, doing what we do. Again, if you're subscribed to y6.com, make sure you're paying attention. Patio Joe's article will be out probably by the morning, I'm assuming, because Joey's just prompt like that. Me and Paulie's will be out either Saturday night or Sunday morning, depending. Usually in the wee hours of the transition, going into Sunday morning. But either way, we'll have the content and projections will be updated throughout the weekend as we get news. Joey, anything in closing from you before we get up out of here?
Now, guys, enjoy your Halloween and be safe.
Loving it. Paulie?
Regardless my article comes out Saturday or early Sunday, like, we got to pay attention to updates up to lock. This weather is very, very seriously going to impact the slate. And, the closer you get to the game, the better, always with news. And I'm sure Roth will do a good job of updating it straight on through lock and possibly beyond. So don't check out early this week. You gotta be up to date with the news. And there's probably gonna be some injury stuff too that changes stuff up between now and lock as well.
Absolutely, 100% agree. With that said, for myself, Patio Joe, for Paulie D, the entire White Seg Nation, as always, good luck.